and this is Closer Look. I'm Rose Scott with a special co-host today, Martha Dalton. She'll join us in just a second. An international missions agency is moving to Atlanta from New York City. Now, you may say, well, that happens all the time. Hold on. With the move, 150 employees will relocate here. The Global Ministries, a mission agency of the Methodist Church, has been in the Big Apple since 1820.
And today, there's a groundbreaking ceremony and its new location on Ponce near Decatur. And here to talk about the move and today's event is Mary Andreolli and Glenn Kellum. Welcome, guys. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Good to be here.
First, why move out of New York City, the Big Apple?
There are multiple reasons. Just to start off with, New York is an expensive place to be in business. And in a lot of ways, what we do is a business. Attracting families, people who want to work for the agency. So Atlanta is a much more inviting environment for that. But honestly, also there was a great outpouring of interest in the agencies coming, not only from the United Methodist Church here in this area, but from other organizations. Conversations with our CEO last year, with the Carter Center, several universities, Emory, Clark Atlanta. The Center for the National Center for Civil and Human Rights was an important part of that conversation, attracting us to Atlanta where we could be in partnership programmatically in a way that just hasn't been as feasible in New York. And also on a larger frame, if you will, there is the fact that Christianity is growing globally more in the South. What I mean by that is the global South, the Southern Hemisphere, and you'd think it's a small thing moving from just New York to Atlanta, but it's meaningful in that it will make us a little more accessible. So there are multiple reasons that we've come here, and we're very much looking excited to being part of the city.
Can you tell us a little bit about the groundbreaking today, about the event today?
Our groundbreaking ceremony is scheduled for right after Martin Luther King Day. So it's actually going to be on Tuesday at Grace United Methodist Church, Ponce de Leon Avenue, and it'll be at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. It is an event that's open to the public, and so we're really looking forward to continuing at the groundbreaking ceremony to think about all of the partnering work that we want to do with our neighbors and with organizations that Glenn has mentioned. So it's kind of it's our day to mark the beginning of our transition that's happening to Atlanta. So we're very excited.
When you talk about your neighbors here, your partners here, and you mentioned the National Center for Civil and Human Rights, we know about the history of Atlanta within the civil rights movement. So does this also give you an opportunity to broaden your mission with maybe a demographic or a sector of the population that you hadn't been able to reach before?
I think that when it comes specifically to Georgia or to Atlanta, yes, and I think that it will be we will be able to expand much more. Global Ministries' passion is really our mission is basically connecting the church and mission.
Sure.
And one of the things that we're really focused on, or I should say populations, is folks who are marginalized or disadvantaged, at a disadvantage. And so in our work, both here locally in the United States and then around the world, that is a group of folks that we are continuously in ministry with. So I do hope that I hope in addition to continuing to serve and work with these populations, that we'll also kind of expand the groups that we are working with. And we look forward to the many different folks that we'll meet here in Atlanta.
Does the global missions message change when it's here within the United States at all? Is it different as opposed to any other part of the world, or is it just the same?
Glenn, what do you think?
Well, I think it's inevitably going to be different because our presence here in Atlanta is going to be a presence in which we will be very intentional about being more active and part of the community than we have been in our present setting in New York. What that will look like, we sort of remains to be seen. We've had very inspiring conversations with members of the City Council. We're in District 2, where we're located, so Council Member Kwanzaa Hall has been a part of the conversations, and we're inspired by his vision for community innovation in the area. So at least in the area around our building, that's the old Fourth Ward, but We're interested in that, but also the rest of the city, the change that's going on in the west side, and the many organizations that are trying to understand what the future of these communities could look like. And we want to be aware of those conversations and, frankly, a part of them, which will be a much more interactive and direct connection to the community than the agency has been historically.
Was there any reluctance within the agency to move the headquarters out of New York here to Atlanta? I mean, it's a big switch. So was there any sort of reluctance to kind of make that transition?
Yes, but only in the sense that, as you were already referencing earlier, we're an organization that's been in New York City almost for 200 years. So we're a big organization and have a long-standing, deeply embedded commitment in New York City. So yes, moving out of a city after almost 2 centuries was a big deal. And I have to say, it's still a big deal, but we are inspired by the opportunity that's here in Atlanta.
If I could add, part of the transition to Atlanta is also the desire to move from being a centralized organization in New York to decentralizing. And so we are working to set up 4 regional offices around the world, and those will be in Latin America, Asia, Africa, and then the United States. And the U.S. office will be here in Atlanta. So it is challenging, and at the same time, being able to kind of expand in this way, to reach out more, to be engaged in more collaboration. I think we're kind of up for the challenge and taking it day by day.
To be clear, those other 3 offices are not established yet, but they're planned. Is that right?
These are in the process of being developed. Okay. In April, we will open our first of these regional offices in Buenos Aires, which would be our anchor office in South America, which will relate very closely with the Atlanta office here. Our CEO was in Korea just last week, got back on Sunday, which was the 3rd of a 3-city exploration of where the Asia office will be, Hong Kong and Singapore, the other 3. And that office will open sometime either late this year or first of 2017, and then there will be an office somewhere in Africa. We currently have what we call a regional executive based in Europe, so we feel like we have the Europe region already established, and then the Atlanta office, as Mary was just saying, will, in addition to being the global administrative headquarters, will also serve as the U.S. regional office.
Now, you're talking about a new facility here, and we just have a little bit of time, but you're talking about new development, so obviously concerns about the environment. You know that question, you know where I'm going, Mary. So listen, will this be a LEED certified building? And we want to make sure that no wildlife or any...
The environmental impact study. And
yes,
that is indeed our goal. And I can mention, and Glenn and I were just talking about this, yes, LEED certification, and then we're working to determine what's the level of LEED certification that we can adhere to. But then Thomas Kemper, our CEO, has also been very mindful of our carbon footprint. And so we think about things like, how is it that we can encourage employees to take the MARTA instead of driving? And so people in New York are really used to taking the metro, so this shouldn't be too big of a transition. And so
we'll see.
Yeah, but that's the goal. Yeah.
Last question as we say goodbye: how much will this cost?
The renovation itself, that project is still a number that's fluctuating. It's about at $15 million, which is public information. So that's the size of the budget, which is a big commitment, but there's been a lot of investment. Local philanthropy here in Atlanta has already made some contributions toward that. The local Atlanta-based Pitts Foundation, for example, is a very important partner with us, helping us to make that happen, and we're in conversation with others as well.
And the ribbon cutting ceremony when you open the doors?
The offices will be open. We joke with our project manager each day about that because it's a push, but the office will be open August the 3rd of this year, so there would be a ribbon cutting around that time frame.
Wow.
Our guests today have been Mary Andreolli and Glenn Kellum, and we've been discussing the United Methodist Church's move out of its global ministries arm from New York to Atlanta. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's been great. Thank you.